So, Admiral, the Pentagon is sending about 100 troops. These are required to operate this new advanced air missile system, the THAAD system, in Israel. Does that raise the stakes with U.S. troops on the ground in Israel?
It certainly does.
What about the risk of us getting more involved?
It certainly raises the risk. It is part of the United States continually being pulled toward this. But it's the reality of the United States standing alongside its greatest ally, partner, and friend in the Middle East, Israel. These 100 troops, Andrea, are going to operate something called the THAAD air defense system, and it's designed to go after ballistic missiles. It won't help against the kind of low and slow drones that we were discussing just a moment ago, but it shows you that you need a lot of different systems. You need Navy destroyers off the coast. You need this THAAD system. You need Patriot batteries, Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow. There's a long series of these. They have to be integrated together. I'm confident Israel can protect itself, but will occasionally something get through? Unfortunately, yes.
Now, Israel has injured in their attacks against Hezbollah a number of UN troops, the UNIFIL troops that have been there. They've been in that area that was supposed to be a non-weaponized area. I have heard U.S. officials telling me that they are critical of UNIFIL because they accept the Israeli intel that there are tunnels and weapons buried in homes and tunnels right in that area, right on the border, and that this was done under the nose of UNIFIL. Not to excuse any attacks that, deliberate or otherwise, endanger UN peacekeepers. But there's, as you know, an ongoing feud between Israel, Netanyahu in particular, and the United Nations.
Indeed, there is. And if I were Israeli, I'd be intensely frustrated with the failures of the UN mission. If the UN mission were doing its job and ensuring that there was a significant demilitarized zone just to the north of the Israeli border, up to the Litani River, Israel would not have had to invade and undertake the kind of military operations they are now. And frankly, this mission has been something that military analysts and observers like myself have been critical of for a decade or more. They just have not been effective at the task they were given.
Now, I know you're not political, but there is an extraordinary number of former military and other national security officials from the Trump administration who have spoken out and have spoken out against Donald Trump's election. In Bob Woodward's new book, General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, warns that former Donald Trump, President Trump, is, quote, a fascist to the core, the most dangerous person in this country. He said a lot more to other people, including myself, another retired general sounding the alarm about a second Trump term. This is a two-star on Morning Joe today.
5 years, I was apolitical. I basically kept my opinions to myself. What I saw in Trump's first term disturbed me greatly because he had this disdain for the Constitution. He had this disdain for laws that he did not agree with or that he basically didn't want to follow.
And this was General Randy Minor in reacting to Donald Trump this weekend saying that he would deploy the military against what he considered U.S. enemies from within on the left. What are your concerns?
My concerns are parallel to those you're hearing from particularly the senior officers who served closely in and around Donald Trump in his administration. Here I put a lot of weight on the word of Mark Milley, who is a tough, hard-nosed, nonpartisan kind of actor. He served for both Republicans and Democrats. He's a Princeton graduate, a smart person. When he says Donald Trump has fascist tendencies or is a fascist to his core, I am very concerned. I also look at one of my closest friends, General John Kelly, who was his chief of staff and was around Donald Trump 24/7 for most of 2 years. John Kelly has validated comments that Trump made about those buried in our cemeteries being suckers and losers. So I hope the American people are listening to the senior military who want to be apolitical, Andrea, but because they served alongside Donald Trump and they have firsthand knowledge of him and his character and are willing to share that, I hope the public is listening.